Good afternoon, everyone. I'm extremely delighted to be among you today. It is my first time in Pakistan, and I've been discovering your wonderful culture and your beautiful city, and I would like to thank everyone for their welcome. So, as was actually shared with you in the short introduction, I am kind of a bit of an oddity within the architecture landscape, if I may say, because I am born in Morocco, US educated with a dual degree in civil engineering and in architecture. And I was lucky to practice in New York and in Paris with Renzo Piano before setting my own office in Morocco, while also embarking in another career, an academic career, first at Harvard University and then at the University of Toronto in Canada. And on this map here, what you can see is the wide array of projects that I was very lucky to work on as a young firm and then as my firm developed, as well as in small yellow stars, all of the different studios and applied research courses that I have taught at the University of Toronto. And Michal Merchant, who's here and who has kindly invited me, was one of my first students. Please, Michal. Was one of my first students at the University of Toronto that I took to the Moroccan desert. Michal calls my course a boot camp because students had to work very hard in a hot climate. But she told me, luckily, that she has learned a lot. Among all of the projects that you can see on this map, with the focus, of course, with several projects in Morocco, there is a common thread, and there is a relationship among them. As architects, we are taught in school that water is a resource brought into and out of a building through a dedicated infrastructure, and something we have no role in shaping, and that we must accept as a given. Usually, it's the engineer who would design the water infrastructure. We are very often warned to watch out for water entering our designs, being encouraged to treat it as an enemy to defeat and keep out at all costs. In the past decade, with the advent of a more ecological approach to design and a growing awareness of climate change challenges, with water stress affecting more and more cities and regions globally, the field of architecture, landscape architecture and urban design have somewhat shifted to address the extreme of water availability, its scarcity on one hand and its destructive abundance on the other. Sorry. I would argue that while design disciplines have indeed become more aware today, both in practice and pedagogy, and while governments are beginning to acknowledge and promote sustainable freshwater use, we still have a long way to go. As designers, we need to treat water and its infrastructural system as entities, just as vital as structure or materials, entities that should be addressed throughout the design process as precious resources. Why is this important, you might ask, for you as an architect sitting in this room? Why can it be left to engineers to handle? Sorry? Yeah, sorry. It is because we have entered the critical global era, characterized by increasing urban populations, rising temperature, prolonged droughts, floods, wildfires, and the depletion of freshwater resources. This requires an urgent paradigm shift towards what I call a water-intelligent city. We should not only change how we approach designing our cities, buildings, and landscape, but also rethink our centralized water infrastructure that we inherited from the 18th century. The system is not only aging, derelict, and overcapacity, but it was also conceived on the premise that natural resources like water are infinite, something that will flow endlessly at just the turn of a tap. I hope we all agree in this room that this ongoing attitude is irresponsible, to say the least, and an alternative is direly needed. I believe we must break down the walls between design, technical and social science disciplines and integrate water infrastructure with the built environment as a single system, with all components supporting and reinforcing one another, from the scale of urban furniture all the way to street networks. Let me explain further. Typically, cities are designed first, and then a centralized water system is connected to its different urban components. This traditional water infrastructure system consumes energy to collect fresh water, treat it, distribute it through pipes, then move wastewater and water runoff through sewage to a centralized treatment plant outside of the city in the base case scenario, since there are many instances where this wastewater is simply discarded in nature or in the sea. While centralization has advantages, such as efficient and quality control, it lacks resilience and wastes a lot of energy to move water back and forth. I would like to propose a hybrid model that promotes the simultaneous design of the city and its water system, one supporting the other to be more efficient. This model would maximize rainwater capture, water recycling, and reuse. This suggested relationship could be described as symbiotic mutualism, a phenomenon in which two or more organisms live or function together to benefit from each other, like the one that connects, for instance, the shark and the remora, or the rhino and the tick bird. It is encouraging and inspiring to see that many of these ideas are already being implemented in best practice design projects across the globe, such as the sponge-like park in Bangkok, Thailand, by the Firmland process, which can absorb up to 1 million gallons of water at once. In my own experience, arid contexts in the Global South, where most of my work and research take place, offer a rich opportunity to investigate new approaches where architecture, landscape, city, and water are intimately intertwined. Allow me to backtrack a bit and share with you what might have spurred my interest in this topic. My first memorable encounter with an architecture that integrates water in its language dates back to my childhood. Growing up in Fez, Morocco, I often accompanied my late grandmother Saida, that you can see here in this photo, to the thermal bath of Sidi Harazem, a Sufi saint, where she swam, drank the hot spring water, and prayed for relief for her painful rheumatisms. Here are some Polaroids of few of our visits with my cousin and grandmother, and you can see me sitting on this gigantic stuffed camel. And the thermal complex of Sidi Harazem was actually designed in the 1960s by Corsican Moroccan architect Jean-François Zevaco in an oasis located 10 kilometers outside of my hometown of Fez, near a hot spring that has been used for centuries, all the way back by the Romans. And it has become a popular leisure, health, and spiritual destination that attracted Moroccans from all over the country. I recall my initial reaction. First, it was fear of this imposing, gigantic concrete structure, but which was unlike anything I had encountered before. Water murmured everywhere I went, and I quickly became enchanted by this architecture and landscape. Zevaco thermal bath existed beyond my wildest dream as a child. It was a palm oasis of trees and concrete, and it emerged abruptly from a landscape of cascading hills and streams. This magical city was a tapestry filled with delicate filigree canopy, pools, drinking fountains, blue mosaic-covered basins, and constructed waterfalls. It had a lot of pathways covered with pergolas and bougainvillea, floating staircases suspended by thin cables, and a market covered in concrete pyramids. It was a child's paradise, a captivating adventure land that stood in stark contrast to the typical urban environment I was accustomed to, one where nature, if it even existed, was tamed and water was confined to formal fountains. If you can please play the video, thank you. So Zevaco's thermal bath not only represented new ways of building and creating public spaces. Please play the video. Thank you. Can you press play? Thank you so much. So Zevaco's thermal bath not only represented, and diminish the music, please. Thank you. New ways of building and creating public spaces, but also offered a reinterpretation of Moroccan vernacular architecture by weaving water, gardens, courtyards, and buildings together in unexpected ways. It is likely that the seed of my interest in architecture were planted during my visits to the thermal bath with my grandmother. After beginning my architecture education in 2000, I came to understand that this station's heroic architecture fell within the corpus of brutalism, which Simon Phipps poetically described as an architecture of sensory extremes, offering an extraordinary and unfamiliar experience to the visitors. And I'm sure you have many of these buildings here in Karachi and in Pakistan. My nostalgia was tainted, however, by the station's decline that you can see in this video. The drastic decrease in the hot water spring flow and its surrounding hills that were hit by years and years of droughts. And still, despite all of these problems, the hotel closing and the buildings being abandoned and lack of water, the station still kept its aura. Its architecture shone brightly despite all of these problems, and even after the nature took over its architecture. The early memories that I had of Sidi Harazem stayed with me and shaped the way that I was going to view my future approach to architecture. Can I go? Yeah, next slide. Yeah, here it is. And there was another experience that was very defining for me. It was in 2007, where I partook in a postgraduate year-long research trip across the Sahara Desert, supported by the Harvard Appleton Fellowship, which actually was recently described in the Architecture Review. So it took me more than a decade and a half to tell about this trip. It was an issue that was dedicated to desert, that you can see here. And this trip further deepened my interest in the relationship between water and the built environment. During this trip, I researched ecotourism architecture in the Sahara, which attempted to reimagine vernacular model to suit today's contemporary need while respecting the environment and integrating local community. I experienced firsthand, and I'm sure Michelle also experienced it, the relative nature of scarcity. What seems scarce to us is not scarce to nomadic tribes, who can thrive with little water and simple mobile shelters, like this tent here. I discovered also methods used to address the expanding scarcity I saw unfolding before my very eyes. Like methods that were drawn from both traditional techniques like water catchment through the old Katara system and ingenious modern solutions like the subterranean water treatment wetland of the hotel Adrar Amelal in the oasis of Siwa in Egypt. I consider this trip to be also one of my defining moments as an architect, the quintessential experience that shaped the architect, educator, and researcher I would become, leading to many conferences, publications, and courses. At the graduate and undergraduate level, which you can see on these slides. What fascinated me most about arid contexts is the stimulating opportunities they provide, encouraging new ways of thinking, designing, collaborating, forming solidarities, and engaging with stakeholders. These environments invite the crafting of novel methods for sustainable architectural practices, one in which water plays a central role. Scarce contexts also prompt us to critically reevaluate the paradigms of abundance and endless growth embedded in our capitalist economies, paradigms that are deeply rooted in dominant beliefs about nature's scarcity, which is viewed as a finite resource that can be perpetually substituted and replaced when depleted. This conceptualization of scarcity sits at the heart of the current planetary crisis, and us architects play a big role in this. I speak to the younger generation. You all play a very big role in this by accepting everything that your client asks you to do. I hope that the message passed. The full potential of working in and investigating deserts and scarce contexts is unlocked when we challenge the traditional conceptualization of scarcity, which typically focuses on tangible shortages defined as situations where demand continuously outstrips supply, leading to progressively dwindling reserve. Instead, what we should do as architects is we should consider resources not as isolated commodities heading towards inevitable exhaustion, but as part of a complex social, economic, political, and environmental ecosystem. Professor of Architecture Jemery Till aptly reminds us that the creative challenge for our profession today is not merely to reorganize our limited resources, but to design new processes that redirect and optimize these flows, altering our value system and behaviors. This approach involved understanding resources within the larger context and expanded our agency as architects to reconfigure them. So now I would like to share with you, after this short introduction, a few examples from my academic work and design practice that demonstrate this approach. So the project that helped me most articulate this approach to water system in arid regions was my research project and publication, Out of Water Design Solutions for Arid Climates, co-led by my colleague, Liat Margolis, who's a professor also at the University of Toronto. We were both then raised in arid countries, and so we sought to develop a toolkit for designers to address water scarcity in their projects. So what we did in this book, after 5 years of research, and a traveling exhibition and feedbacks from also an international conference, we packaged in this book a set of case studies that we have redrawn and analyzed, and hopefully those could be used by architects and landscape architects as examples for their own designs to save water. And you can see here, for example, drawings from the Wadi Hanifa project, which reuses the entire sewage of the city of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia to revive a wadi that had no water before, revive its ecosystem, and turn it into the largest park of the city. So we also developed an analytical matrix by which we assess each project's water performance and energy consumption. Some of our key conclusions for addressing water scarcity in design are very simple and are the following. First one, use different water qualities for different water usage. I'm going to give you a very simple example. Why do we flush our toilets with potable water? We don't need to. Why are we washing our outdoor porch with potable water, right? So we could actually use different qualities of water for different use. The second piece of advice is the integration of ancestral knowledge and technologies and also from other fields such as agriculture into design. As you know, our ancestors had no choice but to deal with water scarcity. And in all of our cultures, we have techniques and ideas that we have completely forgotten. So we should go back to these ideas, not copy them, but get inspired by them. And the third piece of advice is the necessity to completely rethink our centralized water system and its outdated single-pipe plumbing approach, and reimagine rather buildings, landscape that can capture themselves, store and treat and distribute water to make sure that every single drop of water counts. Just a little note on this. We're using today in our cities a water system that's completely centralized that dates from the 18th century. Are we using a transportation system from the 18th century? Are we dressed like in the 18th century? So why are we using a water system that dates from that time? It's completely outdated. As architects, we accept it, right? We just said, okay, I'm going to do a bathroom, water is going to come and water is going to leave. I don't care where it's going. Where we should care, because soon we're not going to have any more water. And because all this water is leaving our houses, our buildings, and going to pollute the sea where our children swim. So I really hope I can share with you, or put a seed of awareness that it is our goal as architects to also be responsible for water systems. All right, so in my own architecture practice, Aziza Chaouni Project, I wanted to share with you a few projects, but I unfortunately don't have much time. But one of my projects that you can actually read about online, I also did a TED Talk about it, is the Fez River Project. So there in my hometown of Fez, which is a UNESCO World Heritage City, this is what you can see on the left, one of the largest in the world, the main river had become an open sewage. So all of the sewage from the old city had become just sewage, stinking, and it started to be, this river started to be covered, and this river was had a big historical role. UNESCO threatened to remove the title of World Heritage City to Fez. And so I worked for about 8 years on the project to uncover the river, to divert the sewage, so not very sexy for an architect to do, for an engineer, more likely, but also to transform the public spaces around this river. So that really relates back to the project that was presented this morning. So I'm not going to be presenting this project, but I'm going to show you the Jodour Sahara project, which is a school entirely autonomous in energy and water in the Sahara Desert. As well, a little bit about the Sidi Harazim project that I shared with you earlier in my talk, because I happened to embark in a rehabilitation project of it, of the 12 hectare of the Brutalis thermal station. But before that, a project that relates to the project that was shown by the young fellow this morning in Tanzania is a very humble project, but that has a lot of meaning to me, because Morocco was hit by a deadly earthquake a year and a half ago, where 3,000 people died overnight. The earthquake hit at 11 p.m. And in the center of the Atlas Mountains, and so a lot of those villages could not get help until the early morning. So I actually joined forces. This was in September 7th, 2023. And I joined forces with some colleagues to work on a long-term solution for the Moroccan government. As you can see here, this is some of the damage. This is my son, Hedi, who is 10 years old, that I take with me often. And we went for a site visit. As you can see, it was on September 29th. And the Moroccan government actually did a very excellent first aid work. It provided very quickly tents and containers for temporary solutions of housing. But what we wanted to propose, and the government agreed with us, with a bunch of my colleagues, all engineers, is to develop a solution for housing that would be for the long term, but that would have to respond to many constraints. The constraint of budget, we need to build it for $14,000 for about 75 to 80 meters square, so 2-bedroom, for it to be anti-seismic, for it to be built with as much as local material as possible, built very quickly with low labor skills, because very few workers wanted to go back to the site of the earthquake. And we also set up for ourselves further constraints that have to do with sustainability. The sewage, there were no sewage system to start with. People only had septic tank. There was no running water. So technically we had to design a pretty autonomous house, and that in a 2 or 3 months period. So technically we did not sleep for a couple months. And so what we started doing quickly is to study the vernacular architecture of that region. So those villages, if I showed you before and after, nothing remained of this village, only the rubbles. The magnitude of the earthquake was close to 8. It was 7.98. So it was a very heavy earthquake, unfortunately. And so most of those villages were on steep slopes, so that also actually, kind of contributed to their entire demolition. And as you can see, this architecture is stone, but also earth, very much, integrated, like within its landscape and organized around courtyards. So what I really wanted to do, and what I do in my own practice, is to not design in my office, but to actually design with the people that are going to use my buildings. So with the survivor of the village, where the government asked us to design the pilot home, we did workshop with children, with women, with youth, with men, and we developed together a very simple house, but that had 3 courtyards. One for women for cooking, one for multi-use, having chickens and goats and so forth, and one to be an outdoor salon. And please, if you can play the video, and just without the music very loud. The music is from like a Moroccan friend of mine who did it for the video. So yeah, I guess it's a bit too loud. So what you would see in this video is just a very quick set. So this is the containers where people were moved. So this is just the little workshop that we did to know what people really wanted, because at the beginning the government just wanted us to do a very simple box in concrete. And so we had to demonstrate that the culture and local needs were very different from a house that would be built in the city. And this is just a very quick time lapse of the house. So one very important part about the house is that we, like I told you, we didn't want to use as little concrete as possible to have a low carbon footprint. And we wanted to use it with bricks, with just regular, not baked, unbaked bricks. Unfortunately, those did not meet the stringent, earthquake requirements. And we decided to develop our own bricks, which would be, interlocking bricks that I'm going to show you. That would not require mortar and would only require reinforcement bars every 1.20 meters. And we said, if we're at it, what if we don't use also bricks for the ceiling? And we also developed and patented this arch brick that I'm going to be showing you. Sorry. So this is just the plan, so very simple, but one, of important, aspect in the plan was that this lower area here, it was meant to be a flexible space, which you can see here, because people wanted to make it evolved. And actually, this was very important. So in this area, we provided foundations and also plumbing for future growth, in the future. So as people get more money, they could have a little bed and breakfast, a little store, or, like a little craft store. So this is just the, assembly. So the house is made out of 3 similar modules. This is for the ease of construction. Wood beams, and like I mentioned to you, like the brick, that's an arch. So the bricks are made out to meet code 95% compressed earth and 5% this mix of that we developed with Lafarge Holcim, which is a cement company, of cement. So that makes the brick also hydrophobic, so you don't need any finish on it. And this is just a very good example that as architects, if we don't find the material, in Morocco we didn't have money to develop the R&D, so we went to the cement manufacturer and asked him, I mean, this was only because there was an earthquake. Without an earthquake, they would not have wanted maybe to help, because we are developing a brick that's 95% earth, and they're cement companies, so there's maybe a conflict of interest, but we were able to convince them. So those are the Lego bricks that I mentioned to you that are interlocking and do not require mortar. This is just the detail. We have a very simple concrete foundation, the bricks, and we have a hay and clay finish on the inside. And this is the actual brick that we developed and we patented. And the arch, which is we call the Dura Arch. So what you see here was what we started. So we asked the contractor which was mainly local people, to only put rebars every 1.20 meters, but they were so scared that they put it at every hole. So we had to tell them, no, cut it. It's okay. It's going to be fine. So there is, anytime you introduce new methods of building, people are, like a little bit scared. And again, there was no water, so we had a water reservoir in the house. And my favorite things to do is to design this gray and black water treatment systems, just using a subterranean gravel bed and with some plants, so that the water, so we separate black water from the toilet, from gray water from the faucet. And so, because that required different means to treatment, so that you don't mix them, you don't want to create a big bucket of very polluted water, and then they're just being treated and water is being reused for the gardens. And just some photos of the completed house. So you can see very simple, and there are one widow and her daughter who were the recipient of this house. So we trained, of course, people to build with this brick, and there was a local manufacturer who started to make this brick. So this was also, we know, probably in Pakistan or like in Morocco, self-construction without architect happen very often. So even if it's, as architect, we're not going to be involved in this, at least we can help change the building practices. Here is also some other images. So, and even the floor is made with the same brick, 95% compressed earth and 5% the mix of cement that we developed. And this is the interior kitchen, courtyard, and the kitchen itself. And this is the salon. Here was not fully furnished. They had just moved in. But, just windows facing each other, as you all know, is the best means of air conditioning ever, and the cheapest. Next project, which is the Jodor Sahara Music School. So this is, again, a project that's very dear to my heart, because I just was working with the Ministry of Tourism as a consultant, went to this small oasis in the south of Morocco, I saw that there was, that oasis had about 1,200 children, no after-school program, and our guide was actually an activist environmentalist that was planting trees. So together, and this just wanted to show you just this little graph of the oasis. What I was actually shocked by, just in a period of a decade, the oasis lost about 20% of its agricultural land. So an oasis is an agricultural, man-made farmland. And sadly, what has been happening, the sand dunes, so climate change in the Sahara Desert, you see it happening. Every year, the dunes are moving closer and closer. You don't have water. But what also has been happening in the small villages, people are leaving their rammed earth houses to move into the built concrete houses, so with just cinder blocks. So in this area, you can cook an egg on your car. It's that hot. It can get 50 degrees Celsius. So they would leave the house, rammed earth, put their chickens and goats, and live in their concrete house where it'd be too hot, so they end up just sleeping outside. So I realized that, we needed to go back. We cannot go back to the past, obviously, but we need to reinvent something different. What's very unique about this oasis, what I discovered as well, it's really at the limits of the Sahara. And so you had Berber, it's a mix of different tribe culture. You have Berber, you have Arabic, you have Hassani and Sub-Saharan influences. So the music was very unique. And every single child, even child and old person, knew how to sing and dance really well. So what we decided to do is, me and my friend and also some colleagues from Holland and from the US, is to create a music school, because we thought, well, this culture is amazing, it's being lost. We can teach younger generation about their culture, and at the same time, they need, if they want to take free music and dance courses, they need to help us reforest the edge of the oasis. So it's environmental and cultural education together. So you can go to jodorsahara.org if you want to know more about the project. But there are a few things that we tested in the past decade and have just to be extremely successful. One thing is this small thing, then I'm going to show you some real photos of how it worked. So this is called the water box. So the water box system is made out of a recycled plastic, and it's just a little container in plastic that has a top in the shape of a fan, and just a little string, at the bottom. And you fill it every 2 weeks with about 2 liters of water, depending, of course, on the climate where you are. And you plant either, in this case, tamarisk trees or acacia trees that are very well known to have roots to retain the soil and prevent sand dunes from, advancing. So before, if you planted a tree, like a tamarisk tree, and you watered it using drip irrigation, only 30% would survive. So you need to irrigate it for 2 years. then you don't need to irrigate it. It would grow on its own. Its root system is very deep. With this system, we reverted almost 75% of the trees would survive. And this is very simple. Why is this successful? Well, the water doesn't evaporate, and the roots of the tree only take the amount of water that are needed. So this was something that we brought for the first time to Morocco, but we wanted to test it further and then to improve it. So we mixed different systems that would stop sands from advancing. So you can see we have this little grid of palm trees, leaves that are woven, and small little walls. And then you can see us here, implementing it in like a plot of land at the edge of the oasis. And then finally here, what happened after just a few years. Oh, sorry, I think I went too fast. And again, this is my son with me. I take him with me often to help me. And to discover. So this is the plan of the school. What's interesting about it is that what you can see on the left is that grid system and the water boxes with those trees. Oh, and after 2 years, you remove the water box and you reuse it for another tree. This is what's very useful about it. But you can see on the left, what we really wanted to investigate is how the architecture itself could be part of that anti-desertification system. I don't have time to get into this, but social and economic equity was important. We surveyed what local people could provide potentially to visitors. And again, we looked, since there was no water whatsoever, only for a few days a year it would rain. So we looked very closely at how every single drop of water could be used and reused. And one of the first buildings that we fundraised for was this water reservoir that would collect rainwater and would have also a classroom on top of it. And why do you have a classroom? The seats of the classroom have little holes, so you get a natural ventilation. And what I realized is that I just watched old people in the oasis at around noon when it's the hottest. They would go next to the well that would be shaded to take a nap, because it is the coolest place. So this was, in a way, a mix of water reservoir and classroom that we did. We also built a compost toilets that had urine diversion, because even if you collect the urine and you use UV treatment, yes, you could actually use the water to irrigate the tamarix trees. So sorry, I'm told to go very quick. So I guess I won't have time to show you the thermal bath, but maybe very quickly. Okay, I will just continue. So this is also the second building we just are completing now. So we fundraised also for this ourselves. This is an auditorium, an outdoor auditorium built with stones and then also with the bricks that I had mentioned to you before. And the bricks emerged from the wall. This is for acoustic reasons. And you can see some detailed also of the bamboo canopy for the shade. And this auditorium serves also when it rains as a water collector that's connected to the water reservoir that I showed you. And yes, if you want to come and visit Morocco, please come, because we also organize, so I'm not just an architect, I organize music events too. So the music school organizes every November Festival of Saharan Music, so you're all invited to come to attend in November. If you're interested, please come see me. Right now, so unfortunately, I'm told that I cannot show you this project, but maybe can I go quickly? Yes? You want to see the thermal bath? Okay, great. So, very quickly, this complex was built between 1960 and 1975. And it was Morocco's, the young country, first tourism infrastructure built by Moroccans for Moroccans. So in a sense, it's very important for our own identity, and that's why Sidi Harazem, the mausoleum of the Sufi saint with the hot spring, was picked as the location, for this complex. Unfortunately, this is what I wanted to show you, is that the complex was really a masterpiece of brutalism, but with a lot of Moroccan concepts and traits that I'm going to share with you. But in 2000, the Moroccan government wanted to Moroccanize it, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. You know, like you just pastiche, just on the facade, you add ethnic, identity elements, and you think that you have made your identity, where I call it makeup. So what the Moroccan government did is that they just put Moroccan tiles just on top of the concrete, very badly put, that already started to break. And actually tourists were still not coming. I mean, if foreign tourists want the real Morocco, they're going to go to the old city. They're not going to come to this makeup, brutalist building with a piece of makeup. So then the complex started to close down, and it was the most beloved place for all of Moroccans. And this is also something that I'm sure you've seen so far in my work, is that I don't sit and wait for clients to come to me. I tend to make projects happen. So in this case, I contacted the Getty Foundation in the US about one of their programs to apply for it, and over 200 projects, 10 were selected, and Sidi Harazem was selected in 2018, and we received the Keeping It Modern grant, but I had to convince the government. In the last section, somebody was asked, how do you convince the government or the city to change their mode? Because the government wanted to demolish and dynamite that complex to make a golf course, but it was too expensive to demolish, thank God. And so for me to receive this grant with them and to do the study and the rehabilitation, they had to be convinced. And I can tell you, you want to know the secret? What worked? Persistence. At the end, they told me just to get rid of me. They just said yes. So that was, well, persistence, but also I was bringing funds to them. But even then, they did not agree. But so it was just me bothering them over and over. So this is the original plan. So it's over 12 hectares. The Sufi saint tomb is next to the oasis, and the whole complex was developed with a set of water bodies that would flow just through gravity. And the important thing about the project is that even if it's a modernist complex, it's organized around a central space called the Riyadh, which is courtyard, that you're going to see is mixed with gardens and waterworks, etc., that's directly inspired from the courtyard that one can find in the city of Fez that's located nearby. And water systems are present. I remember when I was young, you could hear water going everywhere. So this is a staircase with a little cut in it where the water just using gravity would flow. And everywhere you would find water, you find those traditional tiles. Another thing, like that I noticed, around the thermal complex, I saw these little circles, and I asked a shepherd who was there, what are these for? He said, we dig these circles to gather water when it rains for our cattle, so that our sheep and goat can come and drink. Where, guess what? Look at the shape of the pool, very similar to those traditional, catchment system. I'm just sharing this with you because very often we see our post-independence modern architecture as being very foreign, as being Western imported. And I just want to stress that actually that moment in our history, both I'm sure in Pakistan and in Morocco, was a moment where beautiful architecture that's both, I would say, modern and progressive, but make a reference to our own culture existed. And today, based on what I've seen in your city and what I see in Morocco, as architects, we have forgotten about that. We're just looking at the West. We're not looking at our own culture and what our own culture has and our own identity. So those are just the stairs that lead from the main entrance to the pool. And one thing we did, since we were lacking archives, since the archives of the government got flooded, how do you restore a complex where you don't have all of the drawings? So we did a campaign on Facebook called Sidi Harazem, Je me souviens, I remember, yes, I know, but I think I'm allowed to speak a little more, but I'll go faster, where we collected old, you see, that's the ancestor of the selfie over there. So we got some old photos that we discovered, old finishes. So just to share with you, this is one example of the first step of the rehabilitation that we did. We redrawn everything based on photos we have, some old plans that we found, etc., and some old photographs. And this is another piece that's quite beautiful. This is called the water buffet. It's a vertical water fountain that Zevaco did. And finally, this drawing, which for me was the biggest thing, is we never found the drawing of this, but we had to pick pieces together and resketch it. This is the Riyadh. This is the central space of the thermal complex that has this very interesting water body and fountains, etc., as well as gardens. And this is finally the whole water system of the thermal complex. And what you see about the pool, what's super interesting about it, is that it's filled with the hot spring, and after the end of each day, the water got released. So I'm told to go quick, so I'm going to go quickly. In this case, also, we did a set of workshops to determine the future, what programs to put in this thermal complex. So we devised a set of games. Those are the results. It was very important to bring programs that respond to the need of the people that live there, because the government wanted to do a 5-star hotel and to lock everything, whereas this was a very saintly and spiritual place where a lot of Moroccans came to pray and also to bath. So that was also important. So to reimagine the future, the result of all of these co-design workshop was that the thermal spring had to function all year long. So a spa was never built. They had no more money, at the time. So to add a spa, a culinary school, because Fez is the food capital of Morocco, has a lot of olive groves, and to also do an educational center on modern architecture, which we don't have. So this was the plan today with a lot of additional buildings, and the plan at the bottom is the master plan. And the green buildings are the new buildings, a market and a spa and a new shared space centers for meetings. The zoning, we had to protect the valleys around the thermal spring. And we had, like any country in the global south, the budget is limited. So we had to pick the highest hierarchy and the most significant pieces to restore first. So as you see, the central Riyadh and the pool were picked as the first. And then we use this method also within each building. So if we have a limited budget, what are the elements that should be restored first? And one thing that we were asked to do first, is that in the main plaza, there were a lot of informal market stalls. So we had to rehouse them temporarily before we build their own market. And so we designed this just small stalls. This is, again, my son. Sorry, he's always there, El Hadi. Where the local merchants that just sell things on the ground can be moved before we can build the market for them. So this is the main plaza. As you can see, it was covered with new tiles. The basins have no more water. And this is the plan, the restoration plan, that's with its own canopy. The canopy was removed. And this is just a 3D. So this is now under construction. And this is the new market that did not exist at this scale. That's the result of all of the interviews we did. And it's a gigantic concrete canopy with stalls underneath it. And also the roof is designed to be able to catch water that are being stored in the water reservoir. And this is just a view of the future market. COVID, so as we started the rehabilitation, COVID hit. And of course, everything stopped. And instead of doing nothing with some friends, we said, since I had the keys of the complex and the complex were empty, I asked the government if I can organize events. In Morocco, Morocco closed its borders, and within our own city, we could organize events outside of city centers. So I used the space that, as you see, is quite beautiful to organize a set of different music events and so forth. You can see here concerts and etc. So it was very important to reactivate the space so that it doesn't remain dead. There is a free e-publication that you can go online if you're interested, of a conference we held in Sidi Harazem called Keeping It Modern, Modern Heritage Under Pressure, Perspectives from the Global South. So for examples, because those publications are always about the Global North. And there is a website that's in Arabic and English, no French, because there's a language, it's the tongue of our colonizer. And I think that they want me to finish. So very quickly, so do you want to play the video? The last video, the YouTube video, and it's the end. Did you keep the link? Yeah, no? So sorry. So the last video, what I wanted to end is just as part of this cultural activation of the space, we invited a group of choreographers and dancers to do a residency, and this piece that they created inspired by the thermal complex.
Thank you so much, architect Aziza Chaouni, for that brilliant perspective.